This is Tu-160 White Swan. This is the first new airframe of a strategic bomber built in post-Soviet Russia. The new Tu-160 is upgraded and has better avionics than the late 80s Tu-160. Russia will be buying at least 50 of these bombers in addition to 17 of 80s airframe. Why this is significant, you ask? Well, this signifies Russia's desire to fortify its long-range nuclear delivery capability by air. This will increase Russia's striking capabilities against Europe and NATO. This is one of the series of events happening right now, coinciding with Russian troops building near Ukrainian border. So in this video, we shall figure out three things. What Russia is doing right now, what is the main cause here, and what will be the response of West if Russia actually tries to occupy or attack Ukraine. So what Russia is doing? Russia has deployed about 55 to 60 tactical battalions close to Ukrainian border. These are highly mobile mechanized units. The number of troops is around 106,000. Maybe more than that. Each of these battalions are independent or extremely capable of swift blitzkrieg. Russia has already captured southern Crimean Peninsula back in 2014. Crimea can also act as a potential staging ground for Russian forces. Now, Russia has not given any explanation on why they have deployed so many troops and say that these troops are within Russian territory and Russia has all rights to deploy troops within its territory for military exercise. Russia has deployed troops in Crimea. Around 20,000 additional troops are deployed around Donetsk and Luhansk region. These regions are already swarmed by Russian-supported separatists, and the Russian proportion of soldiers is expected to increase to 175,000 in coming weeks. In addition to this, Russia has also started deploying troops and S-400 surface-to-air missiles in Belarus, to which countries like Lithuania has expressed their concern and regard this as a direct threat to Lithuania. We must also understand that Ukraine has expanded its military capability in last 7 years. Ukraine's military isn't what it was in 2014. If Russia at all wants to invade parts of Ukraine, 100 or 175k soldiers will not be enough. Ukraine has bought modern anti-tank weapon systems from US, has received over 90,000 tons of initial arms from US and over 1.2 billion worth of weapon systems which are to be sent to Ukraine very soon. But despite of military buildup, Ukraine's military is no match against the colossal Russian military power. After Russian occupation of Crimea, Donbas region of Ukraine has been erupted with Russian-supported separatists. And during these days, these separatists are heavily supplied by Russian military and will surely support Russian forces in case of an invasion. Now, since we know what exactly is going on now let's figure out the reason behind the Russian buildup. Ukraine has always been Russia's backyard throughout the 20th century. In 1922, Ukraine and Russia became the first founding member of USSR. Both the countries have similar language and culture. Ukraine was the Slavic core of Soviet communism, and Russia feels closer to Ukraine than any other Soviet state. Now in 21st century, things are a little bit different. Ukraine now feels closer to Western alliances and wants to be part of NATO, whereas Russia does not want eastward expansion of NATO. Now that's why Russia opposes NATO membership of Georgia and Ukraine. The fact is apparent that ex-KGB and Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to restore Russia's position as global superpower. And NATO sitting in Russia's backyard won't be a great sight for Putin. Now since 2014, Russia has supplied arms to Russian separatists in Donbas region and criticized West for holding drills in Ukraine. The conflict in Donbas has killed over 14,000 people in last 7 years. But let's step back a little. Does Russia really want to annex entire Ukraine or even Donbas region? Is it even possible in 21st century? Or Russia has far larger and strategic designs? Britain has accused Russia for plotting a plan to install a pro-Kremlin leader in Ukraine, and the military aggression we see is just a deception. And to be fair, it seems to be a more strategic plan and makes more sense. But Russia has rejected such claims, and still, this seems to be a considerable claim. There are many more reasons intertwined with this military amassing, which we can talk about later in detail. Now, what will be the Western response? Biden administration has pledged to impose harsh economic penalties on Russia if Russia invades Ukraine. These financial sanctions will impact Russia's oil and natural gas export and will furthermore deteriorate Russian economy. But US and other NATO countries inflicted economic sanctions on Russia after Crimean War. But here we are, looking at Russia still doing aggressive maneuvers on the Ukrainian border. So I'm not sure how far economic sanctions can go in disabling Russia's ability to wreak havoc on Ukraine. NATO countries including US has supplied Ukraine with weapon system worth $200 billion. UK has sent over 2,000 anti-tank missiles along with few elite troops to Ukraine. C-17 from both the nations are flying back and forth to Ukraine in the last few days. But all of this will not suffice for a long-term conflict against Russia. In addition to this, we must also understand that not all countries from NATO and Europe are sending troops or weapon systems to Ukraine. Germany has refused to send any military assistance to Ukraine. Germany has pledged to send medical financial aid to Ukraine but won't be sending any military assistance despite of being one of the major arms exporters. Germany has its own interest in Russia. Russia is a major oil exporter and major natural gas exporter to Germany, and it will be in Germany's interest to stay neutral in the war. In addition to this, US has put over 8,500 soldiers to heightened alert for assisting NATO allies in Europe. I'm sure these troops won't be actively fighting war against Russia, but will be more in a support role. Since US has already made it clear that US will not send boots on the ground and will only support Ukraine by sending weapons and financial support. Now I have my own parallel argument here. No one can deny the real possibility of Russian invasion into Ukraine, but we should also try to look in some other perspectives of the situation. There is a high possibility that this might just be a Russian posturing, and Russia is gaining a lot from this mere posturing. NATO and allies are all ruffled and Russia has literally not done anything yet. There are over 8 million Russian people living in Ukraine and most of them are pro-Russia. Russia doesn't really need an armed invasion to destabilize Ukraine. We can already see what pro-Russian separatists can do in Donbas region. So the fact that Russia will want to lose so many soldiers and go through economic sanctions for doing something they can do without losing anything is just incomprehensible. We must also understand that Russia and China are very strong allies, and China's large-scale airspace violation of Taiwan arouses some suspicion on Russia's current deployment. This might just be a distraction which is actually working pretty well. Whatever it is, the possibility of war is not impossible, and if it occurs at all, this might erupt into a global war. I am Spearhead. If you like these kind of videos, then please subscribe to my channel. Spearhead over and out.